嗨，大家好，好久不见，又过了一周啦。然后呢，我们今天大家有看到我们放了波西·杰克逊的一个小的预告片。那么我们今天主要要讲的内容呢，我估计大家很难猜出来。我们不是讲希腊的神话，我们要讲的是希腊的文学。因为波西·杰克逊其实从某种意义上来说，也是希腊戏剧在现代的一个延伸。那么今天我就不说那么多废话，我把这个美好的时光让给北坤老师和大家。好，谢谢。
Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to ancient Greek civilization. Today will be mainly about ancient Greek literature. Ancient Greek literature has many different forms because they like to do many different things. Last time we did mention how after the laws changed, many people added many other things such as festivals, and Greek literature would play a major role in their festivals because they have mostly the same purpose, which is to educate people and to make more of a sense of community. So first, let's talk about the theater of ancient Greece. The theater of ancient Greece consisted of comedy and tragedy. We will first be talking about tragedy because tragedy was first. Now, you guys may notice the masks on the left. Do you guys know what they are used for? You guys know what the masks are used
You
for?
can raise your hands.
Brian.
Are they used for like plays?
Yes, they are used for both plays, both comedy and tragedy. Well, but however, many of us would think that they could just express the emotion with their face. They could just, make a happy face or a sad face. Why use a mask? Well, mainly because the stage was very far away from the audience, and the audience would be sitting in a giant area that enclosed the center, and the center would seem very, very far away, so they could not see clearly the center of the stage.
Sometimes they wear gloves.
Gloves. Yeah.
Gloves.
They would also wear gloves in which they would wave them around in order to show their emotion. Mm-hmm. Mostly, however, their actual masks were made out of wood and straw, unlike these clay and stone masks shown on this side. Mm-hmm. So let's first talk about tragedies because they came first before comedies. So a tragedy is a play consisting of a hero and a tragic story, mostly ending with also a tragic ending. Tragedies were originally from the Festival of Dionysus, consisting of a chorus of around 50 people saying many stories. However, later they added on to the chorus, made the chorus smaller, and added some actors. A notable person would be the first actor, Thespis. Thespis was the first actor, and he was the first one who acted in Greek tragedies. Later, other tragedians started adding more and more actors, along with shrinking the chorus even more. So, why would we actually have do tragedy plays? Well, first of all, because it's again for the communityship, and second of all, the government at that time, you don't need to buy tickets to go to a tragedy and play, and they would also give you money to go to a play.
From Pericles period.
Yeah, because that happened at Pericles. So before Pericles, it was just free. You didn't have to go, and nothing was actually mandatory. But after that, well, you still weren't forced to go, but you would be given money. However, do you guys know why they would be given money to go to a tragedy play? Do you guys know why? Brian.
Is it because they want a communityship? So then, when people go to tragedies, they like.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, that's one part. Does anybody know any other reason? There is one other reason other than like their communityship. Okay, well, the other reason would be for them to actually get educated, because by the time of Pericles installed laws, which we did talk about last time, in which every profession except for the generals would be picked by like random. So we can't have any uneducated people taking up very important jobs. So we have people come to the tragedy praise for them to learn off of these tragedies. Tragedies often consist of very high and mighty figure falling from their place because of a blunder. And so it's sort of like a bedtime story to tell children to eat your vegetables, or else the monster will come and eat you up. It sort of sets an example, and the Athenian and the other Greek city, their societies, they wanted them to learn off of these tragedies. Now,
还有 another reason is
Oh,
把整个城邦团结起来。
Yeah, the communityship.
Yeah, communityship.
So-
Because the state, the city states, there are a lot of country. The people lived so far from each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can continue.
So because people live far from each other, it was hard to actually get any relationship with people, because maybe you would just go to the main city to buy something and then just go, not really interacting with other people. However, a prey would like basically force you to stay for some amount of time. And in that amount of time, you may be able to make many friends, and that would also strengthen the bonds within the community. All right, so now let's look at our three major tragedians: Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides. For some people, this might just already be like a review, because we have talked about this, the tragedians, in one of the past classes. But let's just have a small recap. And we won't really go in depth, because they do have a lot of very great praise. But of course, every play would take about 10 or 15 minutes, so we don't have a limited time. First, let's take a look at Aeschylus. Aeschylus, he was actually the oldest of the three, being he also contributed to the Persian War. However, he later died, and his epitaph, which is the writing on his gravestone, did not mention that he actually wrote tragedies. However, it didn't deny it, it just did not mention it. It was rumored that he started writing because he claimed that Dionysus went to his dreams one night and told him to start writing tragedies. He was known as the father of all tragedies, and that was because he was probably one of the oldest and most well-known tragedians. One of his most well-known plays are the Persians, Set Against Thebes, the Supplements, and the Orestia trilogy, consisting of Agamemnon, the Liberation Bearers, and the Eumenides, and lastly Prometheus Bound. So do you guys, the first one that we mentioned was the Persians, and we did talk about the Persian War. So do you guys know what like battle was the Persians based off of?
Perhaps. Could you please give us a hint?
A hint would be it was a navy battle.
Most important.
It was like one of the more important victories against Persia, and it was fought on the sea.
Just guess. Raise your hands. Oh.
Well, okay. So it was based off of the Battle of Salamis. As you guys may remember, Salamis was one of the battles near the end of the Persian War. So Aeschylus sort of wrote that because Salamis was such a great victory. However, we won't go right into it. But what's funny is how he actually died. Do you guys know how Aeschylus died?
Hint.
Hint?
Turtle.
Yeah, tortoise. All right, so Jasper.
Is he the one that got killed by the tortoise that the eagle dropped?
Jackson.
He tripped on a turtle?
Not exactly, but it was very close. All right. So he died because his hair, it was so shiny that a passing eagle thought it was a rock. And eagles back then, they wanted to eat turtles, but turtles, they have a big hard shell. So their only way was to drop the turtle from a very high place onto a rock to crack the shell open. And then
I heard of this story.
Yeah.
I've heard
and
of
then
it.
eat the turtle. Yeah. However, the eagle thought that the Aeschylus's head was a rock because it was shining in the sun. So the eagle dropped the turtle onto his head. However, Aeschylus's head is not a rock, and so it is very much softer than a turtle. So then he died because of the impact of the turtle shell. But did you guys know that the turtle actually survived? The turtle was not hurt at all.
Yeah, because the turtle had a hard shell and his skull wasn't hard enough.
Yes. Okay, now next, let's go on to the next version, Sophocles. Sophocles, he actually took an artistic victory against Aeschylus. Basically, he won in a tragedy competition against Aeschylus. He also got the most awards out of the three, and he had a nearly perfect life compared to the other two. He lived during what we would now call Athens' golden age. And his life was pretty perfect, and he was considered to be very handsome back then. He was also in the same generation of Socrates as was Euripides. They both lived in the same generation as Socrates, and Euripides personally knew Socrates pretty well. Sophocles also established something called the Oedipal complex. Do you guys know what the Oedipal complex is? It's also known as the self-fulfilling prophecy. Any guesses? Any?
Is it like some kind of hey yo, stop it. Is it like some kind of theater or something? Can you hear me? Because yes. I am in a Greek restaurant, so it's pretty loud here.
Yeah.
I can't hear you. Hey yo, stop.
Okay. Yes, well, sort of. Okay, let me explain in detail. So the Oedipal complex is a reference to one of his plays, Oedipus, which is a trilogy of 3 plays, Oedipus Rex, Oedipus at Colonus, and Antigone. So basically, what this means is basically you receive a prophecy, and however the prophecy, it makes you want to change your face so it doesn't follow the prophecy, because the prophecy apparently isn't a good one. However, the more you try to change it, that will just end up eventually fulfilling the prophecy. For example, if the prophecy says today you're going to trip on the road and fall into mud, then you make extra caution to avoid all mud puddles. And then after a full day, you forget about it and you go in and jump into a mud puddle and then you slip. It's basically all your efforts to prevent it actually in the end helps the prophecy to fulfill itself. You can see this happen in Oedipus Rex. However, we won't go really into detail about that.
Didn't you say, like last class, you said that, for example, when you heard that your neighbor was going to kill you, you killed your neighbor first, but it ended up fulfilling the prophecy, and then the other neighbor killed you?
Yeah, so last time I made an example saying that you tried to kill your neighbor, you hit him on the head with a shovel, and your neighbor didn't. Your neighbor, he actually didn't do anything except that you actually thought that he would eventually kill you because of the prophecy. But your neighbor didn't die, but just got a concussion. So your neighbor, after he recovers, then proceeds to kill you because you try to kill him. In the beginning, technically, if you never did those, it might have not happened. But of course, this kind of shows that like prophecies cannot be defied. You can't really change anything. Okay, now let's look at some of Sophocles' plays. First, there's Ajax. Ajax being the story of the greater Ajax after the Trojan War. Electra, Oedipus, which is the trilogy of Oedipus Rex, Oedipus Iconicus, and Antigone, and Last Woman of Trachis. However, a lot of his plays were suicidal ones, such as in Ajax, in which he lost the competition for Achilles' armor to Odysseus. He then goes partly crazy and kills a bunch of sheep, and then he feels guilty and then he kills himself. And another one would be Oedipus, who stabs out his own eyes after he fulfills his own prophecy, even though he tried hard not to. And another thing is the Iliad is original epic by Homer. However, as you guys can see, Sophocles also wrote Ajax, which is what happened after the Iliad. So many of these plays, for example, take Ajax, would sort of be fan fiction to the Iliad, which we will discuss more later on. All right, next is Euripides. He is the author of Medea, Hippolytus, Electra, the Trojan Woman, which is another fanfiction of the Iliad, and the Bacchae. His first play was 13 years after Sophocles' debut, which is his first play, and 3 years after Orestia by Aeschylus. He is also in the same generation as Socrates, and he actually personally knew Socrates pretty well. And he is one of those people that don't believe in fate, which is, as we say, fate, it's sort of like the Oedipal complex. Basically, everything is written down for you. You can't change anything. And Euripides, he doesn't believe in it. So, we can't really argue because everybody has their different beliefs. He eventually died in Macedonia, but he was at that time in which, of course, that wasn't the time of Alexander. Euripides, he wrote Medea, and which is a very, very famous tragedy. It makes a very big contrast to the prequel of Medea, which is the Jason and the Argonauts. Basically, Medea would also technically be considered a fanfiction of Jason and the Argonauts, but one is an epic and one is a tragedy, so that has a giant contrast. So enough about tragedies. Let's actually look at its later variant, the comedies. So tragedies, however, were about a tragic hero and ended in a very sad way. However, comedies would later be a very funny version. But before that, let's take a look. So tragedies would and comedies, they would often refer many characters into a different role. For example, Menelaus, he was described as a very annoying person. So
Why?
Well,
hero, in fact.
He was a hero, but that at that time Athens and Sparta were at war, and Menelaus was the king of Sparta, so they really liked to insult him. They for now the biggest similarity is with him is with Wormtail. Have you guys all read or seen Harry Potter? Have you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Voldemort is so creepy. He doesn't have nose.
Yeah. See, Menelaus is described as someone like Peter Pettigrew, like a very annoying person that always gets beaten up, whether by Voldemort or by Harry Potter. And he isn't even like described as one of those creepy big antagonists like Voldemort. He doesn't, at that time, he doesn't even deserve to get called Voldemort. He was in Orestes and in the Orestia and in the Iphigenia, and he was beaten up by many people. In Orestes, I think you all know about Orestes, who was related to Agamemnon. He did many different annoying things, which resulted in him getting beaten up. First of all, by Sparta's old king Tantalus, and then an old slave that was going to send a letter, and lastly in a different play called Helen, beaten up by a sweeping old lady. Even though these three characters are all very old, however, he was still beaten up and he could not fight back. So the Athenian people really liked to beat up Sparta. Oh, but why didn't Sparta do anything about it? Well, because Sparta, they were mainly warriors. They don't do anything with literature. They don't want anything to do with literature. They just, they don't focus anything onto like writing poems, writing epics. They just fight. From an early age, they were just trained to fight every day, nothing else.
Oh, but they can pay the money.
Yeah, we will talk about that later. Okay, let's introduce another two characters and also contrast them to Harry Potter. So it's Agamemnon and Clytemnestra in the story of Iphigenia. So this story is in which Agamemnon sends for his daughter Iphigenia and says that she's going to be married to Achilles, which is not true. Achilles never said anything about it. Yeah, Achilles was kept in the dark. Achilles didn't know any of this. But in truth, Agamemnon was going to sacrifice Iphigenia to the gods in order for the gods to grant them with wind so they could go to Troy.
Then they can be the king of the kings.
Yeah, then Agamemnon could actually be in honor. So he first sent a very quick messenger to Clytemnestra to tell her that to send Iphigenia to there to be sacrificed. However, he didn't word it like that. He said that they were going to take Iphigenia to go to Achilles' wedding. But then, Agamemnon then thought, oh no, I should be the good guy in this. Then I can at least have honor. So he sends a very, very old slave that can barely walk to send a second letter explaining the truth and how he actually feels guilty. But of course, he wants it to seem like, wow, the gods have fated this to happen. And basically, you didn't get the letter on time because of the god's will.
Oh, he's so weird.
He wants to sacrifice Iphigenia for the greater good, which is why we contrasted him with Grindelwald from Magical Beasts in Harry Potter, because Grindelwald also went on about for the greater good, but same to them, like killing people wouldn't actually be for the greater good. And because of that, Iphigenia was then sacrificed, and Clytemnestra then bore a hate to Agamemnon.
Who is?
Clytemnestra is Agamemnon's wife.
Oh.
Yeah, so after the Trojan War, which lasted 10 years, Clytemnestra and, her boyfriend, Aegisthus, which is basically her replacement for Agamemnon, plotted to kill Agamemnon after he came home. Aegisthus also has hate to Agamemnon because Agamemnon killed Aegisthus's father. So after Agamemnon came back during his feast, Clytemnestra killed Agamemnon. And the chorus then would start to insult. Well, you guys all know what chorus is, right? like the group of people that sing out the story while the actors act it out. The chorus blamed and insulted Aegisthus because he didn't want to go and kill Agamemnon personally. And then later, because of that, Aegisthus wanted to kill the chorus, and then Clytemnestra said, "Enough, we already have killed enough people." So that's why we contrasted her with Narcissus Malfoy, because she, well, technically is on the bad side and did many bad actions, but she always had her reasons for it. And in the end, she still has a good heart and decided to spare the chorus. And that is sort of a contrast of ancient Greek personalities. And because now we would honestly, in a normal movie, what do we see in the villains? You know, we see like an evil space tyrant that wants to conquer Earth, and like some random beast that has like no human knowledge or human intelligence. But in Greek literature, they would actually, make them have their own reasons and have their own different personalities and different types of like villains.
So not totally bad,
Yeah.
all totally good.
Yeah, because everybody has like their own like what they want to do. Like for example, Agamemnon just wants to uphold his honor of the king of the kings. Menelaus, well, honestly, Menelaus was done dirty by the Athenians, but that's not the point. Okay. He was mainly described as a person who clung on to power. But of course, everybody wants power. Everybody wants the power to do things. And Clytemnestra is mainly, well, she also has vengeance reasons to claim vengeance on Agamemnon. Okay, but now let's look at comedies. So comedies were like a more light and bright side of the tragedies. Comedies would usually end in a very good way and mainly criticized and made fun of other people. Our father of comedy, comparable to our father of tragedies, is Aristophanes. Aristophanes made many plays, and let's look at a small video about him and his plays.
Aristophanes?
Aristophanes.
At the annual Athenian Drama Festival in 426 BC, a comic play called The Babylonians, written by a young poet named Aristophanes, was awarded first prize. But the play's depiction of Athens' conduct during the Peloponnesian War was so controversial that afterwards a politician named Cleon took Aristophanes to court for slandering the people of Athens in the presence of foreigners. Aristophanes struck back 2 years later with a play called The Knights. In it, he openly mocked Cleon, ending with Cleon's character working as a lowly sausage seller outside the city gates. This style of satire was a consequence of the unrestricted democracy of 5th century Athens and is now called Old Comedy. Aristophanes' plays, the world's earliest surviving comic dramas, are stuffed full of parodies, songs, sexual jokes, and surreal fantasy. They often use wild situations, like a hero flying to heaven on a dung beetle, or a net cast over a house to keep the owner's father trapped inside, in order to subvert audience expectations. And they've shaped how comedy's been written and performed ever since. The word comedy comes from the ancient Greek komos, revel, and oid, singing, and it differed from its companion art form, tragedy, in many ways. Where ancient Athenian tragedies dealt with the downfall of the high and mighty, their comedies usually ended happily. And where tragedy almost always borrowed stories from legend, comedy addressed current events. Aristophanes' comedies celebrated ordinary people and attacked the powerful. His targets were arrogant politicians, war-mongering generals, and self-important intellectuals. Exactly the people who sat in the front row of the theatre where everyone could see their reactions. As a result, they were referred to as komodoumenoi, those made fun of in comedy. Aristophanes' vicious and often obscene mockery held these leaders to account, testing their commitment to the city. One issue in particular inspired much of Aristophanes' work, the Peloponnesian War between Athens and Sparta. In Peace, written in 421 BC, a middle-aged Athenian frees the embodiment of peace from a cave where she'd been exiled by profiteering politicians. Then, in the aftermath of a crushing naval defeat for Athens in 411 BC, Aristophanes wrote Lysistrata. In this play, the women of Athens grow sick of war and go on a sex strike until their husbands make peace. Other plays use similarly fantastic scenarios to skewer topical situations, such as in Clouds, where Aristophanes mocked fashionable philosophical thinking. The hero, Strepsiades, enrolls in Socrates' new philosophical school, where he learns how to prove that wrong is right and that a debt is not a debt. No matter how outlandish these plays get, the heroes always prevail in the end. Aristophanes also became the master of the parabasis, a comic technique where actors address the audience directly, often praising the playwright or making topical comments and jokes. For example, in Birds, the chorus takes the role of different birds and threatens the Athenian judges that if their play doesn't win first prize, they'll defecate on them as they walk around the city. Perhaps the judges didn't appreciate the joke, as the play came in second. By exploring new ideas and encouraging self-criticism in Athenian society, Aristophanes not only mocked his fellow citizens, but he shaped the nature of comedy itself. Hailed by some scholars as the father of comedy, his fingerprints are visible upon comic techniques everywhere, from slapstick to double acts to impersonations to political satire. Through the praise of free speech and the celebration of ordinary heroes, his plays made his audience think while they laughed, and his retort to Cleon in 425 BC still resonates today. I'm a comedian, so I'll speak about justice, no matter how hard it sounds to your ears. Did you know that TED-Ed has a student voice program?
Okay, we won't be going into TED-Ed, but about Aristophanes' crowds, which heavily mocked Socrates, was actually part of the reason why he was eventually executed for corrupting youth. I mean, Aristophanes, his comedies are meant to mock people, but it was meant to have more like a light atmosphere instead of actually doing such things. So I guess he probably didn't mean for that to happen. But of course, comedies has always been part of our lives, bring happiness and laughter. It's like the opposite of tragedies, and a good contrast is pretty good.
我说一点，然后一会儿北坤帮我们翻译一下。阿里斯多芬呢，他在他的那个时代就非常非常的有名。他其实不止批评，他谁都批评，他不只是针对这个苏格拉底，他的感觉就是在座的各位都是垃圾，然后 including you。他是这种人，所以说他悲剧跟喜剧的不一样，是悲剧经常会写就是一些神话呀、英雄啊，然后就是超越我们常人 ordinary people 的那些人，但是喜剧呢，它一般都是写的就是他们现实生活当中的那些人，他批评的就是现实生活当中的事。所以说阿里斯多芬的喜剧在当时非常非常的受欢迎，非常非常多的这些雅典人喜欢他，他的喜剧也有非常重大的影响。
Yeah, his comedies had very big impact, and it wasn't just Socrates that was actually being mocked and criticized by him. His sort of attitude was that everybody is trash, including you. and like everything and anything. However, he would find everything to make a joke out of and to mock it. So you might not know whether he means it or not, but he just his praise say that he hates everything. All right, next after comedies would be our poems. Poems consisted of epics, lyrics, and epigrams. Poems had a very big impact on all of Greece, and even Sparta, who usually did not have much literature, they would not write poems, of course, but they make good use of their money, and they buy people, rent people to make poems for them. For example, a poet named Tyrtaeus, he is an elegiac poet who makes elegies. An elegy is a poem in which it laments the dead. Basically, it's like, oh God, why have you killed these people? Yeah, after a battle. Okay. So Sparta basically, instead of actually lamenting the dead, like making other people cry for the dead, they make elegies into encouraging the rest of the surviving warriors to fight even harder and battle even braver. So that's like the elegy poem. However, the main three poems we will discuss are the epics, which mainly talks about like stories of heroes and gods. Lyrics being like the poems that you can sing to a tune. And a lyric got its name from lyre. As you can see, this person, he is holding an instrument and he can then sing lyrics to the lyre. And that's how it got its name, lyric, lyre, lyric, lyre. And lastly, but not least, epigrams. Epigrams are poems meant to criticize and mock people, sort of like Aristophanes, but Aristophanes was more like a prey. Epigrams usually talk about like modern society and criticize it. Now let's first look at our epics. So Jeffrey?
At that time, what does modern mean?
Like modern at that time. Like
okay.
Like what's happening at the present of that time.
Okay.
Basically, it won't be going back into history, but more like they're at modern society, not ours, because they can't possibly write into the future. All right, do you guys still remember the Homer and what Homer wrote?
No one remember Homer?
Nobody remembers Homer.
Iliad and Odyssey.
Yeah, so the Homer wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey. And the Iliad and the Odyssey were super duper important to their society. Every child it was like a requirement for them to read Homer's epics when as they grow up. And it had almost the same impact as the Bible had on Jewish and Christian people.
Yes, they think the Homer said was real history.
Yeah, they think that his epics
Not
were
story,
actually real and actually happened. Of course, they may have actually happened, they may have not, but they were very, very certain that they happened. And also another example to show the importance of Homer's books is Alexander the Great. So Alexander the Great, he received a gift from Aristotle, his master, who gave him his own annotated version of the Iliad, and he brought it to war and read it even before and after a battle.
要不要简单介绍一下荷马史诗
Yeah.
讲了什么？就是简单说一下。
Yeah, so Homer's epics such as the Iliad and the Odyssey were all about heroes and their heroic acts. However, the Iliad was also a tragedy, and it ended with Hector's death. And however, we do know a lot about what happened after the Trojan War, but as we said before, it was mostly like other people's fan fiction, such as Ajax by Sophocles and the Trojan Woman by Euripides. However, many of us, we still, the impact was still lasting because many people would name their children after heroes, such as you guys may have heard about like the name Hector. Many people are named Hector as well. And another impact on Alexander, he thinks that Achilles is his like ancestor. However, not a lot of other people also don't think so, but there's like a small group of people that think that his ancestor is Zeus.
对，以前的时候，大部分的希腊人都认为马其顿这个地方的人都不能算是希腊人，但是亚历山大说，我们的祖先可是阿克琉斯，我们当然是希腊人了。但是很多，但是因为他很成功，所以其他希腊人就认了。如果他没有那么成功的话，可能其他希腊人就不承认这个事情。Please translate.
Yeah. So, of course, Macedonia before Alexander's uprising was more like plains and not very civilized. So the other Greek people did not recognize Macedonia as their own. But after Alexander was successful, they started to recognize Macedonia. However, if Alexander was not that successful, he would have, not done anything, and Macedonia would still be, not recognized to the Greeks. So during Alexander's expedition, once he made it to like what used to be Troy, and his generals offered him like equipment belonging to Paris. However, Alexander was very, very proud, and he said, "No, I shall not receive any used object except unless it is from my own ancestor, Achilles." So the idiot obviously made a very great impact on him, and maybe he got too arrogant, but that's not a bad thing. Now let's look at the second epic, Hesiod, who wrote the Theogony. Do you guys know what the Theogony is? You guys know about the Theogony? Yeah, it's about like the family. It's mostly about like the Greek gods. The Greek gods and their family tree. Okay. So I shall be explaining it then. So first of all, Theogony talks about like the creation of the world. And we did talk about this in one of our earlier classes about Greek mythology. So Theogony basically started with like everything chaos, and then Uranos and Gaia, and the Titans, and then the gods. Basically, it's about how the world started and the relationships between the gods, the Titans, and other beings. For example, like how Kronos overthrew Uranos, how Zeus then overthrew Kronos, and many of their other relationships. And basically, that was like the fundamentals of Greek mythology. Like most, and like even Zeus and like other people such as Prometheus, their story was also in the Theogony. Basically, it has most of the fundamentals of Greek mythology about the gods.
还有一个呢，就是还有一部非常重要的史诗是田宫农时，一会儿你帮我翻译一下啊。然后他这部诗其实写的很像，与其说是一个epic， 不如说是一部鸡汤文，有点就是他的主要是讲了一个现实的一个事情，就是他跟他的younger brother， 他的兄弟，因为家里的财产起了一些纠纷，后来他的兄弟贿赂了那个就是当官的人，然后就把那些就是田产呀什么都占了，然后呢这个兄弟呢后来又不争气，然后就像我们上一次说的，沦为了债务奴隶吧，这种感觉就是他就去求他这个哥哥帮忙，这个 赫西俄德呢，他自己呢，虽然当初被剥夺了遗产的继承权，但是他自己 work hard。做了很多的努力的工作，然后积攒了一笔积蓄，然后他就去帮助了他的弟弟。帮助了他弟弟之后，他就专门写了这么一个东西去教育他弟弟，告诉他你要努力工作，你闲暇的时间不要东游西荡的，你要把自己所有的时间用在建设你的美好生活上面。所以说这个很像是一部教育你的这么一部很长很长的一部诗吧。
Yeah, so basically, Working Days was also sort of like an epic written by Hesiod, basically talking about how his experience when like his like wealth was taken by his brother after his brother had bribed the judges. And then his brother, once again, did not go anywhere far with the wealth and then came back and tried to plead for help. So basically, the rest is basically him lecturing his brother. But if you guys were Hesiod, what would you guys have done with your brother that did not do anything good with the money? Any?
If I was low temper and my brother stole it, then I would, like, if it was in the Greek times, I would yeah, exactly, I would kill him.
Okay.
I would kill him.
Okay. Jasper?
I would murder him and throw him in a well. Which
Okay.
will cost me.
Okay, don't be that violent. Let's think of a different way. Personally, if I were to do, I would just leave him alone and just let him do his own thing.
Jeffrey.
I would kill him and then kill him twice and throw him in a fire and then
Calm down.
and then get a cannon and shoot him with the cannon and then kill him one more time.
Let's not
There's
kill
no
him.
cannons invented that time.
Nobody cares.
Okay, let's not talk about killing because technically that would be illegal. Let's talk about a legal way. Kathy.
Oh my god.
Can you summarize the story again?
So basically, you have a brother, and that brother bribed the judges to give all the wealth to your brother, and then your brother then lost all the money in like gambling or something, and then comes back to you to ask for more money or more help. All right, Brian.
I would hit him in the head with a pan once and then help him.
Okay, yeah. Sounds reasonable. Jeffrey.
Jeffrey.
I forgot to lower.
Okay. All right. So, Annie.
As a good brother, I would first spank him. Then I would lecture a 500-page long poem and mail it to him, and then mail a bit of money to him as lecturing, telling him not to spend money anymore.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Even though we all have like very good ideas, we need to continue because, well, our time is limited. So Hesiod actually did help him, but also did write a very, very long epic about how to lecture him and how he should actually enjoy his life and how to save.
Yes.
All right. Okay, so next, let's have a small video about Theogony.
Yes.
So you want to know how it all started? The terrible Titans, the 12 gods, and their kingdoms? Well, for many years, there was only emptiness in the world. And suddenly, boom, chaos appeared. Well, it was not to be the beginning. From chaos were born the three basic powers of the world. The vast earth, which became the home of all the immortals. Eros, which arouses the intense desire in the hearts of gods and men. And Tartarus, which determines the past, present, and future. But for now, let's talk about the Earth. Earth, or Gaia, made many children, some with chaos. Yes, you heard right, it was chaos who gave birth to it. Of course, some did it on their own. The children she gave birth to alone were the starry Uranus, which constantly surrounds and protects her, the high mountains that offer refuge to the nymphs, and the deep Pontus with the endless seas that rain upon its shores. And even though Uranus was her son, she bore him 6 children. The 3 Cyclops, fearless giant monsters, and the 300 Hands, giants with supernatural powers with 100 hands and 50 heads. Of course, their father should not have imprisoned them in Tartarus, but he was afraid that at some point they would rise up and take over from him. Nice dad, huh? Heaven and Earth had 12 more immortal children, the Titans. Okay, Uranus must have liked them because he did not imprison them anywhere. And of all the Titans, Cronus and Rhea gave birth to the 6 original human gods: Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon, and finally Zeus. Cronus was as scared as his father. Coincidence? That one day, one of his children would take his throne. So, with the birth of each child, he immediately swallowed it. And so Rhea lost all her children, all except for the last one, Zeus. And she was determined to save him at all costs. With the help of her mother, Earth, you didn't forget about her, did you? Hid the newborn Zeus in a cave in Crete. They wrapped a stone in cloth and presented it to Cronus as the newborn Zeus. And guess what happened to that stone? Cronus ruled for a few more years, unworried because he had done away with all his challengers. But Zeus, big and strong, appeared out of nowhere and rebelled against him. He was joined by 5 other gods that sprang from the mouth of Cronus, now fully grown and ready to fight on the side of their younger brother. Zeus freed the Cyclops and the 100-handed from Tartarus. Between us, he should thank Uranus for imprisoning them. And so, with these allies at his side, he launched a great war against the Titans. After 10 whole years, the gods managed to defeat them, but only after the 100-handed launched huge rocks that crushed the Titans. And where do you think the Titans were imprisoned? Where else? Tartarus, of course. After this victory, the 6 gods had to find a way to live peacefully with each other, and decided to divide the powers of the world between the 3 men. Hades took the kingdom of the underworld, Poseidon the kingdom of the sea, and Zeus, the smallest but also the bravest of all, took the kingdom of earth and sky. He lived on Olympus and became the father and leader of all mortals and immortals, with the promise that from now on he would bring peace and harmony to the world. And he did it, don't you think? Well, almost. He gets an A for effort.
Yeah, that was what happened. And of course, this is once again the Oedipal complex, the prophecy about how Kronos would eventually one of his children overthrow him. Of course, it would have not happened if he wasn't wary of the prophecy, and that's why I never trust prophecies. Because if he hadn't tried to eat all his children, then like Zeus wouldn't have hate for him, and then if Zeus didn't hate him, didn't hate him, then they would have lived in peace. All right, but let's move on from the epics and let's go to the lyrics. Our main 3 lyric writers are Solon, who we did talk about last time as the legendary lawmaker who paved the road for democracy, and Pindar, who is also a lyric writer, and Sappho. All right. So now we are going to have a small question. Well, not very small, it's pretty big. But so next slide, there will be 3 different texts about the lyrics that they each wrote. And of course, they are scrambled up. So now I will tell you guys how each of them writes lyrics. And next slide, we will see who wrote which. So first, Solon would like to write about what is morally good and what is morally bad. What should someone do with like greed or like with their wealth?
He always wants to teach you something.
Yeah, he wants to like teach you how to live. He doesn't want to do anything else.
Yeah.
Pindar usually wrote about like honor and glamour. and like how you feel when you win something. And Sappho wrote about like love between people. Okay, so next, are you guys ready? All right, so let's go. All right, so do you guys know which one would each one write? Any, do you have?
Give us 1 minute so they can finish all this text.
Sorry, I did, and it was my hand from last time.
Okay. All right. So we will give 1 minute for you guys to read, to basically grasp the basic idea. You guys don't need to like tell us like the theme. We just need to know the basic idea of it, and then we can see who wrote each. Once again, a recap. Solon writes about like morality, wants to teach you something on life. Pindar writes about like fame and glory, and Sappho writes about love. And we're going to number these texts. The one on the left, we will number that number 1. The one on the top right will be number 2, and the one on the bottom right is number 3. Okay, does anybody know which one belongs to each writer?
Solon, Pindar, and Sol.
All right, let's look at Solon first. Which one do you guys think Solon wrote? Once again, Solon writes more about like morality and how you're supposed to do things. All right, does anybody know?
Okay.
Brian.
Did he write the bottom right one?
Yes, he did. He did, because yeah, it says like how people like steal, how people shouldn't steal, like how people like stuff. Basically, he just wants to teach you like and give you a piece of his mind. Okay, and since time is running low, I'll just answer the other 2. So the long one on the left is written by Sappho. As you can see, it's about like how Helen is in love by like Paris. And the upper right one is written by Pindar, because it writes about Gleam of Splendor and like best and such, more like fame and glory to those.
现在我要说这个萨福这个女诗人，她是一个她在古代的时候从事女性从事诗人这个职业的其实是很少的，她是他们当中她是为数不多的女诗人当中最有名的一个。然后她描写很多爱情，她的很多想法跟男性是不一样的。就这一首我们选取的这一首写海伦的一首诗，很多人都认为特洛伊就是很多就是古希腊的这种男性作家都认为 Helen 是一个坏女人，就是她引起了这个特洛伊战争，她特别坏。但是萨福反而是觉得这个海伦很勇敢，她去追寻她自己的真爱，然后他觉得城邦也没有什么了不起的，没有什么会比自己的就是女人的这种真爱更重要。
Yeah, she had a very different view than the other writers about the Iliad. The other people mostly think that Helen was like a person who ruined like the peace, but Sappho actually thinks that Helen was actually very brave for like following her love instead of like other things. All right, let's move on.
然后我再说一点点。
Okay.
Sorry， 品达是主要是给那种就是 奥运会啊这些体育赛事的这些冠军们写诗的，他是一个职业诗人，就是专门收钱给人家写诗的。
just like what Sparta does.
对，你给他足够的钱，他就会帮你写那种，就是写那种诗。他写这种诗跟其他人还不一样，其他人写的诗就是弹琴唱，他写的这种诗是就是体育赛事之后会有一个游行，还会就是唱歌跳舞，所以他还要负责去给他们排练舞蹈啊，做这个表演的一个监工，所以他收钱是很贵的，很年轻就出名了，挣了非常多钱。Please translate.
Yeah, so he was like one of the professional poets that would make poems, especially at their Olympic Games to celebrate, and he was paid to make poems, and he would also like recite those poems on like the parades. Okay, and another thing about and such Olympic Games are very festive, important. So that's why they have to have somebody like Pindar to go. All right. Next is Plato's Phaedo, which is like mostly Plato. We all know that he's a philosopher, and his master is Socrates. And Socrates is literally his idol. He loves Socrates. Every one of his stories has Socrates as the story's main character, including this one.
Yes, Socrates in Plato's 的对话录dialogue 里面，他并不完全真实，但是非常的有魅力，非常的掐名。
Yeah, he was very charming in Plato's dialogues.
很多哲学家都写书，但是有文学价值的很少。基本上在我这里看来的话，就是柏拉图是比较有文学价值的。我在这里推荐了一本书，是柏拉图的裴多篇，是非常重要的。柏拉图有三部著作，一部是申辩，一部是苏格拉底的申辩，一部是裴多，一部是克里同篇。这3篇著作是我建议大家都可以去看一下的。Please translate.
So first, we recommend 3 books. First is Plato's Phaedo. Second is Apology, also written by Plato. And last is Cato of Alpecus. Okay. And we won't really go into depth about this one because our time is running low. So before we end,
我们看看为什么斯巴达被我们排除在这个范围之内，看看这些孩子，斯巴达孩子都学了什么。
This is like a music video about why the Spartans, they don't have literature, and basically this has like what they learn at like their school. All right.
Hey, all you helots, you zealots, you Peloponnesians, you Lacedaemons, all of Leonidas's army, let's get barmy for the Spartan School Musical! Go Spartans! Woo! Come on! Today I'm starting high school where boys have turned to men.
I've packed my sword and shield, we don't use paper and pen.
Everyone's a jock here.
We don't have Spartan nerds.
The weedy kids were left to die as breakfast for the birds.
We're taught to love a fight, we're taught not to be meek. And if we're good, they feed us 3 square meals every week.
Let's go fighting now, fighting is exciting now, rocking at the Spartan School. Come on! Woo! At Spartan kindergarten, I'm the boss that's understood. I smack them if they're naughty and I thwack them if they're good. I'm feeling rather peckish, I'm gonna steal some food. Caught, I'll have to punish you, ungrateful Spartan brood.
We promise not to steal, we're not the thieving sort.
Stealing is considered good, what's wrong is getting caught.
Let's get beaten now, learn lies and cheating now, rolling at the Spartan School.
We have a bunch of contests to see who is the best. The meanest, leanest, toughest, roughest Spartan contest. This one is my favorite game, lashings of good fun. Didn't feel a thing
I want my mom.
We pass our last exam and it's Spartan graduation.
Straight away we go to work, no time for celebration.
10 years active service in the army, no diversion.
There's only one job for a Spartan, killing loads of Persians.
Wondering about love, it's bound until you're 30.
High school doesn't teach romance, it teaches fighting dirty. Let's go fighting now, fighting is exciting now, rocking up the Spartan school. Let's get beaten now, learn lies and cheating now, rolling up the Spartan school.
Yeah, and that's basically why Sparta had no relationship in literature, and that's why we did not include them at all in this class. Because Spartans, they learned how to fight and like everything related to that. No literature, they were basically brutes, but we can't really call them that.
好，那我们今天非常非常开心，跟大家一起度过了1个小时的时间。那我们今天就到这里了。下周的话，我们会休假1周，我们再下周见。
Okay, bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.